I've been convinced that I have to have a bait tank. So this is a bait tank, and this is relatively small as far as these bait tanks go for offshore. So I cut some backup plates out of fiberglass, and I laid them on top of the live well and drilled holes through the white plastic. And now I have the plastic tank clamped up to the bottom of the boards, and I drilled up through all the holes except I missed two for some reason. And after I drilled up through the holes with a 1/4 inch bit, then I countersunk with a 3/8 bit, and I'm using these little, they're called T-nuts. It's just a threaded shaft with some little Sharpie barbs that bite into wood. They're good for wood. So now when I put a bolt up from the bottom, I'll have a threaded hole and it won't turn. So I'm going to see if I can get these things to line up. Ones on the ends will be easy because there's only one. Okay, but my bolts are too short. Let me go find some longer ones.
I ended up, after the fact, I pulled all these T-nuts off and I countersunk the holes just a little bit so they'd be flush with the surface. I did that before we fiberglassed.
Okay, all 8 bolts are fitting. They all have backers. I don't think that's going to hold the entire weight of the thing if it was full of water, but it'll be a huge help. So now I'm more comfortable putting less of a support on the bottom, knowing that I can hold a lot of weight from this top. So the bait tank is now hanging from the 8 1/4x20 bolts. They go up from the bottom into T-nuts that are embedded in the top. And the 3 across the front, there's a plastic spreader, like giant rectangular washer. And there's one on each end, have a big round plate washer. So that can hold a tremendous amount of weight. And if this tank was stainless or aluminum or fiberglass, I'd probably call it good, but it's not. It's that Tupperware stuff, that rubbery plastic, and I think it would deform with weight on it hanging from the top. So I'm putting some braces on the bottom. And it took a little head scratching to figure this out, but if you see on that back structure, there's a wedge glued onto it. That brings this little 1 1/8 inch piece of yackle up to touch the bottom of the tank. Got this piece of yackle, super hard, super dense, super rot resistant lumber, and I have embedded a stud here, here, and here, and covered over the heads. I hope they don't ever start turning. And this timber bolts to these studs, like yo. So that lets the tank support it on each end. And this little timber goes on top of this one and sits on that wedge that I showed you earlier. And then it bolts here, straight up, that little bracket. So now the tank is supported in 4 places on the bottom and the 7 places on the top, and it's removable. That's a big deal to me. I didn't want to just glass the thing in where I couldn't get it out. For starters, I want to take it out and paint pretty quickly. Today I drilled holes in my bait box. I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm just using common sense. So the white through hull or bulkhead fitting is the drain. That's when you don't want to use the tank and you want to just drain it out. The black bulkhead fitting with the 90, that's where the water comes in, and it will be pumped in by this little pump, and I don't know where I'm going to put it yet. And the one above it will be the low water elevation. If we're marsh fishing and have cockahos, they don't need that much water, and they're pretty hardy, so there's no sense in filling this tank all the way up and carrying the weight. And the other one is the main drain, so when the tank is, that's as full as the tank can ever get. If it gets above that, it's going to go overboard. I'm attempting to bend this hinge, or bend the leaf part. So I've scribed a line. I don't know if it'll show. Yeah, it shows up. And I'm going to take the grinder and remove maybe half the thickness of the metal and see if I can't get it to fold on that line. Well, it worked. So now I need to bend the other leaf to fold behind this. So it, same type of cut, just a little bit further to the right.
So now I have another hinge. These are actually from the original boat I demoed, and I'm cutting the flat leaf parts of the hinge free. I don't need the middle part. I need the leaves. I need to make the leaves of the hinge that I bent a little longer to get some more embed into the fiberglass. That's how I'm going to hold it to the bait tank lid, and some more length on the other side just to give me some more room to put the screws. So I'm just cutting out the pivot part in the middle, and we'll waste that, and we'll keep the flat parts and weld them up.
Now if I can weld this, if I can weld this to this, I'll have the hinge I want. So the modified hinge is the first step. I'm trying to make a top for the bait box. And I'm salvaging a little fiberglass skin here so I don't have to make my own. And the top is a little weird. I don't think I can make it waterproof. I don't want the top recessed flush with the back deck, because that's going to leave a crack that's just going to fill up with dirt and crap. So I want it to overlap, but I don't want it to be a thick overlap. That'll be a big tripping hazard. So that was the whole idea about the modified hinges I'm making. I'll show you that in a minute. So starting out with a flat skin of glass. It doesn't have a whole lot of strength. It's pretty thin. I'll glue a thickener or core in the middle part, and that's going to make it strong. And then I ended up gluing around the edges twice, and then we glassed the back. But I'll show you what I'm doing. This is the core I'm preparing glue on. I'm using thickened epoxy, and the core is the Venicel. It's the foam that I purchased for making all the stringers. It is it's really light. It doesn't have a whole lot of strength, but it glasses real well, and when you have the 2 layers of glass, it gets really strong. So it's really cold. Had to warm up the glue in the microwave to get it somewhat, to be able to even mix it. And when I get it together and get the clamps on it, I'll bring it into my wife's studio for overnight curing, because the studio has a little bit of heat, unlike my shop. Well, I told you a big fat lie. I remembered bringing it into my wife's studio, but according to this video, I clamped it in place with a gravity clamp, and it stayed right here overnight. It's funny how your mind remembers things that aren't necessarily true. Alternate truths. I glued another piece of fiberglass around the perimeter like a thickener. So let's take these clamps off and see what it looks like. So what we got so far is a very thin fiberglass skin. It was so thin that I decided to double it around the perimeter with another thin layer. I glued a core of Divinycell, which I'm going to cover with glass. And I'm going to glue my homemade hinge on this edge, just like this. And after the glue is set, I'm going to glass over it. So this will be good and strong. So I'm going to glue this hinge here now with epoxy, which will hold it steady while I glass the whole back of this thing with 2 or 3 layers of thin glass, and then that'll be pretty much it. I'll have to sand this, sand the texture off of this side and just make it smooth, or I'll sand the texture off of this original glass and put my texture on it to match whatever I do else in the boat. Let's see how our hinge did last night. Stuck on there. Now I'm going to clean it and glass it, and glass the bottom of the cover.
So the edges of the Divinycell, where I had used a rasp to kind of round them over, were really rough, really had a stiff texture in them. So I mixed some polyester resin with some thickener and kind of smoothed out the whole thing to make it less porous, make it smoother. And the thickener I'm using is basically the dust from my random orbital sander bag, and since mostly what I've been sanding is blue epoxy fairing compound, my dust is blue, so therefore this thickened resin is blue. But it's not epoxy paint, it's polyester resin. So then I wanted the edges to be thicker yet, so I've added some chop mat strips around the perimeter. I think I went around it twice, and then I glassed the entire surface twice.
So this is our top so far. I need to trim it and untape the hinge and see how it's working. I might need to go thicker on the edges to make the hinge work correctly. Okay, so the bottom of the top is looking good. But I still need to make the flanges thicker. I don't know if you can see this, but right now if I was to install it like this, that's a better view, and people were to step on it, which they are going to step on, all of the weight would be on this little lightweight hinge. So I want to bring the flange down past this hinge, so when people step on it, it'll be on these 3 flanges, the 2 sides and the far end. And I might even put a little bit of glass right here, just so this little lightweight hinge won't take the brunt of people jumping on the back of the boat or standing on the back of the boat. But as far as strength, it's good enough like it is now. I just need to raise the edges up. Fish box lid with the added depth. I glued another piece of fiberglass around it, and glue's dry, so let's take it off, see how it fits. Okay, perfect. Not sure how good you'll be able to see this, but now with the lid in the closed position, the hinge is not going to take a load. It's just going to be, all of the weight will be supported from the lid itself. So good progress. Go see if it fits outside. Okay, I did a little bit of cleanup on the bottom, and we have fittage. It's like perfect. So when I screw the hinge down, the reason I went to all this trouble was I wanted the lid to overlap, but I wanted it to open 180 degrees, and most hinges won't let you do that. If I would have just put a piano hinge, I could have opened it 180 degrees, but I wouldn't have had an overlap. So I went to a little trouble here, and I think it's going to be worth it. I just got to have a good hold down. If this flops open on the interstate, it's going to be going. It's going to rip this hinge off. So, okay, good stuff. Add this to the growing pile of pieces that need to be finished. Finished. And we have a lid. I couldn't be happier, really. It's kind of an awkward deal. I didn't really know what I was going to do. We have a strong lid. You can jump up and down on it all day long. Stainless steel hinge. I scribed a line. This line is the face of here. And then I close it and I put the same line on the top, because I'm going to need this when I drill the hole for the latch. Be the same kind of round latch we put up front. And I believe I have room under here to put a little rubber pad. Not so much to make it watertight, but just to make it quiet. And also, I got my doors set. I got this one set. And we got this one set. This one wants to fall over, but that's okay. And I'm going to put the same kind of round latch on these. And I have room on these to also put a little rubber pad to quiet them down. So good stuff.
So typically the way I make my videos, I grab little pieces of video as I work on a project, put them in the computer, and at some point when it's kind of finished, I will put them all together and try to make a decent video. But I don't work on one thing at a time, mostly because the epoxy. If you do one glue, then you're done for the day. So I typically have 3 or 4 or 5 different projects going on at one time. And after a few weeks, hopefully I'll have enough to make a video of something. But it's getting kind of difficult lately. We took a week and went to Colorado for my wife's to oversee a piece that was cast at a large foundry there. And she's currently working on a couple of more larger pieces for a church in Texas that I'm helping her on. And we have a bronze to cast for a church in Massachusetts. And our son is getting ready to purchase a house 35 miles away that needs a lot of work. So, plus it rains all the time. So it's getting harder for me to stay ahead and post a decent video every Thursday. So if I miss a Thursday, don't think I've given up on the boat. It's just it's been hard to get some decent content. I don't want to just put hours and hours of me sanding, which is kind of what I've been doing when it hadn't been raining. Been trying to do more interesting things and make the videos make sense. But I'm kind of getting caught up. I don't have much of a backlog of videos, and progress on the boat has slowed up. The weather hasn't been good. So I'm going to keep trying to get one out on Thursday, but maybe they'll get shorter, or maybe I'll just miss a Thursday. Anyway, I'm getting some good comments. I'm getting quite a few people following the thread, and I've enjoyed putting out the videos. So don't give up on me if I get short for a week or so. Progress is still being made, and we're going to finish this boat. So thanks for watching.